Welcome back to Beyond the Fear, where we dive into the darkest corners of the supernatural and the unexplained. I'm your host, Zishan, and tonight we're uncovering a story that's bound to leave you questioning reality itself. Imagine buying something as ordinary as a mirror, only to realize that the reflections it shows aren't just of this world. In tonight's tale, The Cursed Mirror, Amir finds out the hard way that some objects hold on to more than just memories. They hold on to the souls of the lost. Turn the lights down, get comfortable, and let's step into the world of the unknown. It was a quiet Saturday afternoon when Amir wandered into a part of the city he had never explored before. His weekends were usually spent browsing flea markets and antique shops, searching for oddities to add to his growing collection of curiosities. His apartment was already filled with forgotten relics from the past. Old books, faded paintings, clocks with frozen hands. But this weekend, he found something different. Something that sent a chill down his spine the moment he laid eyes on it. The shop appeared out of nowhere, tucked away in a narrow, dimly lit alley. The wooden sign above the door creaked in the wind, barely legible under layers of dust. It read, "The Collector's Vault." The shop looked ancient, its windows fogged with grime. Something about the place felt off, but Amir's curiosity was piqued. Without hesitation, he stepped inside. The scent of old wood, mildew, and something sweet yet decaying filled the air. The shelves were crammed with relics from forgotten eras, worn-out furniture, tattered books, and strange trinkets. Behind the counter stood a frail old man, his gaze steady and unnerving. As Amir wandered deeper into the shop, something caught his attention. An antique mirror. It stood taller than Amir, with an intricately carved silver frame that was tarnished with age. The glass was cloudy, its edges darkened as if something had seeped into it over time. When Amir stepped closer, he noticed his reflection seemed slightly distorted, like looking into a pool of water disturbed by a breeze. He leaned in, peering at his own face. For a brief moment, something flickered behind him in the glass, a dark shadow. He spun around, but there was nothing there. "How much for the mirror?" Amir asked, still staring at the eerie reflection. The old man didn't respond at first. He looked at the mirror, his eyes narrowing slightly. "That mirror has a story," he said slowly, as if choosing his words carefully. "It belonged to a woman a long time ago. It's said to be cursed." Amir chuckled, intrigued by the tale. "What kind of curse?" "They say the mirror shows you things that shouldn't be seen, reflections from another world. Once you see them, they stay with you." Amir wasn't the type to believe in curses, but he loved objects with a history, even if it was only a story. "I'll take it." The old man sighed, a long, weary sound, but made no further attempt to dissuade him. "Very well. But don't say you weren't warned." That night, Amir placed the mirror in his bedroom. It was the perfect addition to his collection, unique, beautiful, and mysterious. As the evening drew on, the atmosphere in his apartment seemed to change. The air felt heavier, colder. Lying in bed, Amir glanced at the mirror from across the room. His reflection stared back at him from the dimly lit glass, but something about it felt wrong. The shadows in the reflection seemed to move, subtly, as if the room inside the mirror was alive in a way his own was not. His heart pounded, but he forced himself to stand and walk toward it. As he got closer, the unease grew. His reflection looked like him, but his eyes
seemed darker, filled with something he couldn't quite place. Fear. No, it was more sinister. Then he saw it. Behind him in the mirror, just for a second, a figure, a dark silhouette. He whipped around, his breath caught in his throat, but the room was empty.
Turning back to the mirror, the figure was gone, and it was just him again, pale and shaken. Sleep didn't come easily that night. His mind raced with images of the shadowy figure and the strange reflection that had stared back at him. But eventually, exhaustion overtook him. The next few days were worse. Each time he looked into the mirror, something was wrong. At first it was subtle. His reflection seemed delayed, like an old video with a slight lag. Then, he started seeing things behind him again. One night, as he brushed his teeth, he saw a woman standing just over his shoulder in the mirror. She wore a long, tattered dress, her hair tangled and matted. Her face was half obscured, but her eyes, wide, hollow, and full of hunger, were unmistakable. Amir froze, staring at her reflection. He slowly turned, expecting to see her right behind him. But there was nothing. The room was empty, yet the image of the woman lingered in his mind, etched into his memory. After that, he couldn't bring himself to look into the mirror again. He draped a cloth over it, hoping that would keep whatever haunted it at bay. But it didn't help. His dreams were now filled with horrifying visions of the mirror, of the woman, and of the shadowy figures that seemed to be watching him, waiting. In his dreams, he found himself inside the mirror, looking out at his own body, unable to scream or move as the figures circled him, whispering things he couldn't understand but felt deep in his bones. The terror became unbearable. One night, as he lay in bed, he glanced at the mirror, still covered by the cloth. His bedroom in the reflection wasn't the same. The walls were cracked, the furniture rotted, and his bed, his reflection, was decayed, covered in dust. And there, lying on the bed, was a figure that looked like him, but wasn't. Its skin was gray and peeling, its eyes hollow. He backed away, heart pounding in his chest, unable to tear his eyes away from the reflection. He didn't sleep at all that night. Amir's world began to unravel. He stopped going to work, stopped seeing friends. He barely left his apartment. He was consumed by fear, the kind that clung to him like a second skin. Every surface that could reflect, windows, his phone screen, even puddles on the street, seemed to show the same figures now. They followed him everywhere, their eyes always watching. In desperation, he decided to destroy the mirror. One late evening, he dragged it down to the alley behind his building and smashed it with a hammer. The sound of glass shattering echoed through the night, and for the first time in days, Amir felt relief. But as he looked down at the shards scattered across the pavement, he saw his reflection, broken into hundreds of pieces. In each fragment, his reflection was twisted and wrong. The figures hadn't left. They were still there, within him now. The mirror had been a gateway, but the curse had moved beyond it. That night, as he lay in bed, he saw them. The shadowy figures stood at the foot of his bed, their hollow eyes fixed on him. No mirror was needed anymore. They had followed him out. They had claimed him. The darkness wrapped around him, suffocating, consuming. In his final moments, he looked toward the window and saw his reflection one last time. It wasn't his face anymore. By morning, Amir was gone. His apartment stood silent, the only trace of him a broken mirror in an alley and the faint whisper of something not of this world. Weeks later, the shopkeeper from the collector's vault closed up shop for good. But as he walked down the alley, he caught sight of the shattered mirror. Picking up one of the larger pieces, he saw a ripple in the glass just for a moment. A reflection, not of this world. And that brings us to the end of tonight's story on Beyond the Fear. What would you do if your reflection no longer felt like your own? If you saw things in the mirror that shouldn't be there? Amir's story is a chilling reminder that some objects are best left undiscovered. If tonight's tale sent a shiver down your spine, make sure to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel. Got a horror story you'd like to see brought to life? Leave it in the comments below. As always, stay safe, stay curious, and remember, the real terror might just be a reflection away.